All right, we're on the record outside the presence of the jury with the parties and counsel. Mr. Doherty, you indicated there's something we needed to take up before the jury comes in?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon. I sent the court and counsel 2 cases on point with regards to the introduction of transcripts along with audio recordings. I could get into some detail if you like, but I'll put the cases on the record. It's People v. Coca,
right.
C-O-C-A. It's a Colorado Court of Appeals case 40, Colorado Appeals 440 from 1978. And then, sorry. The other case is People v. Hader, which is H-A-I-D-E-R. Trouble pulling that one up. Both of these cases stand for the premise that transcripts can be introduced in an effort to aid the jury, because the alternative, of course, is that the recording is played over and over and over again.
Right.
If the court found or if counsel asserted there was some issue with accuracy of the transcript, then of course there would be discussion about redactions or making changes to the transcript. Absent that, I think the transcript is an acceptable aid to the jury and should be admitted.
Well, I disagree with you.
Okay. Sure.
Coca is based upon Turner. I haven't looked at Hader, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Coca is based on Hader, or Turner, which is kind of says the same things as what you stated. But the first issue is the recording that you're going to play understandable, number one? Because if it is, why do we need the aid?
Oh, you're asking?
I mean, yeah, it's a question.
It just assists the jury, because if they miss a portion or miss a word, then we have to have it replayed, including later on in deliberations, instead of them having the exhibit, the transcript itself, back in the jury room with them.
Well, and the old, and I'm sorry to interrupt you,
it's okay.
But if you also look at the Turner case, it was only the transcript came to the jury upside down. They were told that they could only look at it while the recording was being played. They were told that if they heard something different than what was on the transcript, they were supposed to rely upon their hearing, and then they were to pass the transcript back to the court, and they did not have access to it. Now, I don't know about Hader, but that's what Coca cited. So if it's, there are some transcripts, or if we had a transcript of one of our witnesses today, we would, the recording of one of our witnesses today, we definitely want a transcript because it's super hard to understand.
Yes.
But even if the transcript is admitted for those purposes, the cases indicate that the transcript does not go back to the jury. So I'm going to not allow, based on what I've heard, if it's a problem understanding the recording, which it doesn't sound like it's going to be, I may reconsider, but I'm not going to allow the transcripts to go back to the jury or be introduced then at that point. So, anything else?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Your Honor, we had talked before the lunch break about the defense opening the door to prior bad acts.
Yeah, and I did want to talk to you about that. And I'm sorry, the case that I was thinking of, I found it's not that new, and it was a different issue. So that's, I'm not as concerned about it as I was when we had the conference at the bench. Sure. Now that I've reread that case. But I also decided to go get lunch instead of looking at the transcript, so I don't remember why are you saying the door was open.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I had asked the witness, Ms. Baird, if she had the impression that Dylan did not want to go to visit his father. She
Right.
said yes. Counsel then asked her if she was scared for Dylan. Another question, was she worried something bad was going to happen? And did Dylan assure her that everything was okay? Followed shortly thereafter by the question which the court did not allow about her threatening, making a threat about killing someone. My concern, and the reason I raised this both before the testimony from her and Mr. Harvey and after, is that by asking her if she was scared and asking her if she was worried something was going to happen, but Dylan thought he would be fine. It seems to imply that she had some irrational basis for fear for Dylan's well-being, when in fact she had some direct information from Dylan that made her fearful about Dylan's safety.
And what was that direct information?
So she was told by Dylan that he had been kidnapped by the defendant on a prior occasion, abandoned by the defendant on a prior occasion, and overall subject to an abusive relationship. So, Your Honor, at this point, I could make a record, because I do believe the defense has opened the door, and I could ask to have her recalled. I'm not going to do that, because I think it causes the prosecution concern about what she would then say on the stand. So what I would just simply say at this point is, as I said before she testified, there are a number of witnesses here who have testimony and evidence about prior bad acts of the defendant, where if the defense inquires or implies that additional information is out there, then
Hold on just a second.
Then they are in fact opening the door. So I'm not going to ask that that witness be recalled at this point. Rather, I would ask that she be excused. But I do think they've come very close to, if not, have already opened the door as to Ms. Baird. I can get into a longer record if you want, but I would simply say at this point that given the amount of negative information that was shared by Dylan with others in his life, including witnesses who have yet to testify, there's a significant amount of 404B out there that the people are not planning to introduce, that the defense could easily open the door to, and I think that's what happened with Ms. Baird, so I wanted to bring that to the court's attention.
Okay, I appreciate you bringing it to my attention. I don't know if I agree with you in regard to Ms. Baird, but like you say, there's more witnesses coming, and we'll see what happens with it. So, the defense already said Ms. Baird could be excused, so she's free to go then.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So, with that, we just need to let Cindy know. And you guys don't need anything, correct?
No, Judge.
Okay, thank you. Rise for the jury, please. Okay, we can be seated. All right, before we start, a couple things. We will stop right at noon tomorrow for Mr. Gentry, because he's got something soon thereafter. So I've just put the parties on notice that he needs to be gone at noon, so we got to stop at noon. For lunch, not for the whole day. Also, Mr. Capon, if you need to put on your sunglasses, that's fine. We can also, if it would be helpful, turn off that one bank of lights. I think it would be okay with the rest of the jury. Would that be helpful? Let's try that. Would you turn off the far bank of lights? I don't remember which switch it is. Can people still see and read and do what they need to do? Okay, let's do that then. I think that'll be helpful. That way we'll know you're awake. Okay. All right, your next witness.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Thank you. The people called Joseph Ceballos to the stand.
Okay. Mr. Ceballos, come up to the witness stand up here, please. And before you sit down, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Have a seat. Make sure you speak up.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Please state your full name, spelling your last name for the record.
Joseph Anthony, Ceballos.
How old are you, Mr. Ceballos?
21.
Where are you currently living?
Utah.
Are you employed?
Yes, DoorDash.
What do you do for DoorDash?
Deliveries.
And did you previously live in the Bayfield, Durango area?
No.
Have you ever been living in Colorado?
Yes.
I'm sorry, in the Colorado Springs area.
Yes.
And when was that?
Like in the beginning? Pretty much my whole life until 18. So 1999 till 2018.
99 through 2018, living in the Colorado Springs area.
Yeah.
Approximately how old were you in 2012?
12.
Where were you living at that point?
At my grandpa's.
Your grandpa's name?
Michael Frankel.
And where were you living?
Frankel? My bad.
And you were living with your grandfather at that point.
Yeah.
The jury is hearing evidence about an incident that took place in 2012. So I'm going to ask you some questions about November of 2012.
Okay.
Who were your close friends at that point in your life?
Dylan, Adam, Kristen.
How did you first meet Dylan?
Me and Adam were playing football, and we just saw he was, active and playing. I think he was playing basketball or something, and we invited him to play. We played that one day, and then we just started becoming best friends and playing.
As best friends, how often would you hang out together?
Me and Adam, we would hang out almost every day.
How about you and Dylan?
Every day, pretty much, when he was available.
What about school? Did you guys go to the same school?
No.
What school were you going to at the time?
Jenkins Middle School.
Do you recall what school Dylan was going to at the time?
I can't answer that.
Where was he living?
With his mom, across the street from Adam.
Across the street from that.
Yeah.
How would you describe Dylan as a person?
Very outgoing, very funny, humble, smart.
Had he ever talked about running away or hurting himself?
Never.
And how often would the two of you communicate by cell phone or text?
A lot.
Generally speaking, when Dylan would text you and you would text him back, how quick was he to respond?
Very frequent, like that.
So for the record, you've snapped your fingers.
Yes.
What was Dylan's relationship like with his mother?
Awesome. Actually, it's inspired me because I don't really have a mother. So
Sorry to hear that. When you say inspired you, what do you mean by that?
I wish I would have had a connection like that with my mother.
Do you recall the last time you saw Dylan being around November 17th, 18th of 2012?
I really don't remember the days, to be honest.
Okay, that's okay. Do you remember the last time you saw him?
Yes.
Remember the day before that as well?
A little bit, yes.
So I have a number of questions to ask you. Before I start asking these questions, why don't you, in your own words, tell the jury what you remember about your final time with Dylan?
Like the day of. So what I remember is Dylan spending the night with, me, Adam, and us chilling, and then we got a knock on the door. His mom came, and then she came and got him, and that's pretty much what my memory remembers.
Okay. So if the court would allow, I'm going to ask you to take a look at Exhibits 1, 2, and 3 in evidence. May I approach, Sean?
You may.
Have you seen those photographs before, sir?
Yeah.
You could take a look at all three, if you don't mind.
Remember it like it was yesterday.
Where and when were these photographs taken?
Kristen Baird. The time I really don't remember, but it was for sure at Kristen's Baird house.
Okay. So why don't we put number 1 on the screen, please? Who do we see in this photograph, Mr. Ceballos?
Me and Dylan.
Dylan's the one to the right in the photo?
Yes.
How about exhibit 2, please?
From left to right, Dylan, me, Adam, Harvey.
What were you guys doing at that point?
Just messing around, having fun, being kids.
People 3, please. How about people 3?
Dylan, me, and Adam from left to right.
Any injuries, sores, or cuts to Dylan's face? Or
Absolutely not.
And these photos were taken when in relation to his leaving for his trip? You mentioned he was going to be leaving.
I think it was that day or the day before, but like I said, I can't answer that accurately, but one of those days.
Where was he going to?
I think he was going to his dad's.
Do you have the impression that he wanted to or did not want to go visit his father?
He absolutely did not want to go with his father.
And that's based on conversations that you had with Dylan?
Absolutely.
How did he seem when he talked about his friends who were living in the area where his father lived?
He didn't really mention him, to be honest.
What was the reason he was going to visit his father?
Court order.
By that, sir.
I think it was court order that he had to go with his father.
And do you recall what Dylan had with him and was taking with him to visit his father?
Yes, he had a backpack, phone charger, and his accessories.
Backpack, phone charger,
And
his
iPod. Yeah, iPod, phone.
What was his mood and demeanor before leaving for the airport?
He really didn't want to go. I could see fear and sadness in his eyes.
Do you remember his mom picking him up from for a trip to the airport?
Like at my house? Yes.
Can you describe that for us, please?
It was pretty quick. It was just, I said, bye, I'll see you whenever. I gave him a hug, and then she was like, we got to go, and then they left, and pretty much that's what happened.
You indicated with your arms it looked like a hugging motion.
Yeah, I hugged him.
Remember doing that?
Yes.
Ever see Dylan again after that?
No.
What further communication did you have with him after he left with his mom to the airport?
I texted him. He sent me a picture, and that was it.
What was the picture of?
The plane?
Do you recall what he said in the text?
I do not.
You recall meeting with investigators soon after Dylan went missing and talking with them about what you recall?
Yes.
Would it refresh your recollection if I give you an opportunity to look at that report, sir?
Yes.
Can I approach you?
You may.
Sir, if I may, I did not hear the witness didn't remember something. I thought he said yes. I may have missed the question before, but what are we refreshing?
Sorry, I believe I asked John what he
There were-
said in the
and I know exactly what it was. That was the next question where he said, yes, he did not recall what the text message was. So we're good. Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Ceballos, if you could take a look at the third full paragraph and just read it to yourself. And then when you're done, look up and I'll have some questions for you. Does that refresh your recollection? Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
So he sent you a picture of what?
The picture, the plane.
And then what words did he send you accompanying the picture of the plane?
What now?
What now? Did you ever hear from Dylan again after that?
No.
When did you find out that Dylan was missing?
November 19th.
How'd you find out, Mr. Ceballos?
The news.
What was the impact on you?
I broke down that moment.
Tell the jury what you mean by that, please.
I was in tears. I had a sick feeling in my stomach, and I just completely broke down.
And the days, the weeks that followed, what was that like?
Just sadness, pain. You know, I can never imagine that. Never.
When and how did you find out that Dylan Redwine was dead, Mr. Ceballos?
When I heard in the news that they found his remains.
Your Honor, I have no further questions for Mr. Ceballos. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
You have to hold on, though. We have the defense attorney. He's going to ask you questions, probably.
My bad.
That's okay. Mr. Moran?
Your Honor, I'm sorry. Before Mr. Moran begins, the report is still in front of Mr. Ceballos.
Oh, could you get it, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Moran.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me know if you can't hear me. It's been an issue today. I'm going to project and enunciate. Mr. Ceballos, I know that this is not easy. So if you need to take a second, that's totally okay. You let me know, and we can take a break. I'll point out to the judge that you need a second if that's something that comes up, okay?
Okay.
I want to just clear some things up that you were discussing about the last time you saw Dylan. So you were remarking that you gave him a hug as his mom was rolling up to drive him to the airport, right?
No, I gave him a hug at the door before he left.
Okay. And that was after you guys had a sleepover the evening before, right?
It was the same day.
Okay. So, and then the next day was the day that you learned Dylan was missing, right?
I don't recall that.
So if I can go through this with you, it would have been Dylan on his way to the airport when you saw, or when you gave Dylan a hug, right?
I gave him a hug at my house.
Right. And his mom was picking him up, right?
His mom was already at the door.
I see. To take him to the airport.
Yes.
And then it was the next day that you learned that Dylan was missing, right?
I really don't recall. I just remember knowing for sure he was missing on November 19th.
I see. And do you recall what happened the day before you learned that Dylan was missing?
Kind of, it happened like 9 years ago.
Sure. And was it you guys spent the night together?
Mm-hmm.
Then that evening, after spending the night together, Dylan's mom came to pick him up and you gave him a hug, right?
Yeah.
And then sometime thereafter, you learned that Dylan was missing, but you're not sure when.
I feel like I heard him go missing, like, I felt like days later, honestly.
I see. All right. The evening that, let me say it this way. The photograph of the airplane was after Dylan had missed another flight, right? That's why he was saying, what now? Because there'd already been an issue with an airplane.
I don't recall that. I wasn't aware that he went on to another flight.
The night that you guys had a sleepover, Kristen Baird was not with you that night, was she?
No.
So the photographs that were taken were before that evening. Is that fair?
It makes sense to be, but I really don't remember.
Okay. And so then the day after the sleepover, the day that Dylan was picked up by his mom and you gave him a hug, that day, were you spending the day with Kristen Baird?
I don't recall.
Okay. Was Kristen Baird at the sleepover?
No.
Okay. And then do you recall watching Dylan and his mom depart after you gave him a hug? Like walk to the car or otherwise?
I remember them leaving, yeah.
Okay. And then did you have a view of them leaving from where you were standing to the car where they drove off?
I honestly just gave him a hug. He left. I didn't even look outside to see, so I can't answer that.
Do you remember Ms. Baird becoming very upset that Dylan was leaving after you gave him that hug?
No.
Do you remember I'm changing gears here a little bit. So you were living with your grandfather at the time, correct?
Yeah.
And occasionally your grandfather would allow your friends to come spend the night, sleep over. Is that right?
Yeah.
And you were, at some point, you had to communicate to Dylan, if we sneak out any further, if you leave the house at night, you will not be allowed to come over anymore, right?
Yes.
And it was after multiple occasions where Dylan had left the house in the night, and that was something that was not okay with your grandfather.
Yes.
A moment, please. Thank you, Mr. Ceballos.
Hang on still a little bit longer. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Ceballos, when you got the text that said, "What now?" with the airplane,
Yeah.
what did you think that was regarding?
I think it was referring to, like, what do I do now? Like, because like I already communicated, because you asked me how he felt, and he was scared, and that's what I took it as, and like, what now,
Out going to visit his father.
Yes.
I'm going to object at this point, I think that the previous answer be stricken. This calls for speculation.
Your Honor.
No, I'm gonna overrule that, but I think you're starting to get outside cross-examination in terms of the scared, aren't you?
That's actually my last question.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. Ceballos.
Any
Thank you.
questions from the jury?
No, thank you.
No, okay, just hang on. There's a question from the jury.
Okay.
Okay. It's good you don't know how this works. That's a good sign. So, Mr. Ceballos, at night when there was these sleepovers going on and you guys would leave, did you go with him or was it just Dylan?
I honestly don't recall.
Okay. Do you recall where he went?
No,
Okay.
I really don't recall.
Okay, then that's fine. Any follow-up from either side? No? Anything else from the jury?
Unless you guys need something, then no.
Yeah. No, we're good yet. Can he be excused?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you very much, and I would ask that he be excused from this.
Any objection? All right.
No, thank you.
I was gonna
Thank
rule
you.
without you. You're excused. You can step down. Thank you. You don't have to come back. Your next witness?
Your Honor, the people called Don Broccus to the stand.
Okay. Mr. Broccus come up to the witness stand up here, please? And if I can have you, before you sit down, raise your right hand for me. Sorry, swear in. Sit down. No, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you. Have a seat.
Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
Can you please state your full name, spelling your last name for the record?
Hey, it's Donald, actually, Broccus, Brockus.
How are you today, sir?
Doing well.
Are you currently employed?
I am.
How are you employed?
I work for the Southern Ute Tribe Permanent Fund as a risk and emergency manager.
How long have you lived in Plata County, Mr. Broccus?
30 years.
And how were you employed in 2012?
As of 2012, I was Deputy Director of Aviation for Durango La Plata County Airport.
What were your duties and responsibilities in that role at the airport?
A lot. Basically, I managed all landside and airside operations, supervised directly, carried out another number of functions from finance and accounting to supervising the custodial staff, but importantly, for this case anyway, I was as much of an IT person as the airport had. So I managed all the networking, video surveillance, all the IT systems out there.
What was your role with regards to video surveillance at the airport?
Actually, I designed and deployed most of the system, installed a lot of the cabling and cameras myself with the help of an assistant.
What was the reason you took that on as a project back then?
Because we had no video surveillance prior to that, and another of my duties was that I was airport security coordinator, and felt like that was a gap in our security system out there that I had the ability to address.
Where did you have the cameras installed?
I had a variety of locations. I think, again, actually, at the point in time that the events in question occurred, that I had about 8 up and running, all on the air side of the terminal building.
How'd the cameras
Or on land side, I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Okay, and I'm sorry to jump in on you there.
Yeah, that's okay.
How'd the cameras work?
Well, they were what are known as IPPoE cameras. They ran off the power drawn over the internet cables that served them. They were routed back through Cisco routers that provided the power and up to a server that I had up in the main offices of the airport. The cameras had a number of capabilities, you know, because in those days anyway, our server storage capacities were pretty limited. I had those 8 cameras set up to detect motion. They were capable of that, and to record whenever there was motion in their visual field.
At that point, 2012, did you have cameras in every part of the airport?
Not in every part by any means, no. I had, at that point in time, I had none in the gate area that were recording anyway. I had none out on the air side, so out on the ramp where the aircraft parked. I had a couple of cameras out there that I could watch from home to see what was going on, but they were not tied into the server so that they recorded and made. So the only recording cameras that I had going at that point anyway were in the ticketing, the main hallway in the center of the terminal building, and the baggage claim areas.
About the arrival area, or the area towards baggage claim and arrival?
I had cameras pointing out there. So essentially, a couple of them actually. I had one that was positioned roughly in the center of the terminal building, pointing down through the walkway, by the rental car area, in between the rental car counters and the baggage claim area. I had another one up at the far north end of the building that pointed back at the baggage belt. So I did have a couple of cameras up there. I had two in the center hallway that were focused only on the center hallway. I had another one positioned in the center, pointed toward the airline ticket counters and the walkway out in front of them. And then I had three more installed to get a good view of what was going on at the airline ticket counters.
Okay. Jury's hearing evidence about an incident that took place on November 18th, 2012. Do you recall being requested by law enforcement to look for recordings from different locations in the airport on that date, November 18th, 2012?
I do.
Do you recall finding a video relevant to their request?
I do.
Your Honor, if I may approach with what's been marked as People 37 for identification, it's been previously provided.
Yes.
Thank you. Do you recognize that, sir?
I do.
What is that?
This one is a DVD recording of the video that I did locate, that I later learned probably did in fact contain some footage of Mark Redwine and Dylan Redwine, and it contains my initials. These particular initials were added in 2020 in an interview with the deputy.
Now, do those initials signify that you went back on that date in 2020 and watched the clip again?
I did.
And do the contents of that DVD accurately reflect, in fact, exactly capture the recording that you isolated, including Mark Redwine and Dylan Redwine on November 18th, 2012?
They did. They exactly matched what I recall having recorded and given to a deputy back in 2012.
Thank you, sir. Your Honor, at this time, the people would move to admit People 37 into evidence.
Any objection?
If the court prefers, I can approach or.
No, I want to hear your objection.
Sure. Colorado Rule of Evidence 102 is the basis for our objection. Videos that we have been provided, that I assume is what the witness is looking at, is incomplete and therefore inadmissible. The theory that Dylan Redwine and his father were distant, and that's demonstrated by Walmart and airport videos, is something that the prosecution is seeking to use this video to demonstrate. This video starts after Mr. Redwine and Dylan Redwine have first greeted each other, so it creates a misleading impression as it currently stands, so it's now more prejudicial than probative under Colorado Rule of 103. I'd ask permission to voir dire on this if the court has any further questions on it, but based on the lack of personal knowledge with respect to all of what's contained on this video, then I believe it to be more prejudicial than probative and would object to its permission.
You want to make a record?
Your Honor, this video clip was provided to counsel years ago, and I can look up the exact date if needed. The witness has already testified. It captures the exact and complete recording that he was able to isolate of Dylan Redwine and Mark Redwine. If counsel has questions about other recordings that he may think exist out there, obviously he can cross-examine the witness on it. But otherwise, I do believe the foundation's been laid for a proper admission.
Court agrees the foundation's been laid. If there's additional video you wanted to show, you can show it. So, it's admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Broccus, I'm going to have People 37 in evidence put on the screen and played. A short clip, we'll watch it, and then I'll ask you a few follow-up questions, okay?
Oh, sure. Just as long as you're not in front of the jury.
I'm going to play it first, Mr. Broccus, then I'll play it again and ask you a couple questions, okay? All right, if we could go back to the beginning. Your Honor, may I approach Mr. Broccus?
You may.
Give him the pointer and ask him to step down.
Yes. So Mr. Broadcast, or Mr. Broccus, excuse me, we're streaming this. So if you could hold the microphone in one hand, you have to hit the mute button to make it work, I think. You see it on the left button? Okay. And then you can hold that and just tap on the top so you don't see. I'm not hearing anything. Yes. No, we're not hearing anything. The battery state, do you think? Yes. Hold on a second, Mr. Broccus, with the reporter. Okay, do we have more here? Or? Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Select or?
It was on.
It was on.
Check.
Let me see.
What am I doing?
Yeah, you hit it. You hit the like button. Try not to hit any of the buttons.
No buttons.
No buttons.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Broccus. What area of the airport are we looking at here at the first piece of the video?
This is the main center hallway of the terminal building. In the far upper, be my left-hand corner, are the doors that enter that hallway from the gate. So arriving passengers go through the gate area, come out those doors, and up through the center hallway. And directly behind, just to the lower right-hand corner or side of Main Street, exit doors going out of the center of the terminal.
The record, you were referencing the exit doors to the right of the screen.
Correct. Sorry.
Okay.
Loud's good.
So where are people coming from when they're entering the top of the screen there?
I'll point up here in the upper left-hand corner where that no entrance sign is. That's a security area from that point on. So passengers come out of that secured side and enter the public areas of the terminal.
Hit play here, please.
Pardon? Okay.
And were you able to locate the individuals you believe to be Dylan Redwine and Mark Redwine in this clip?
I can.
And where do you see them in the clip, sir?
Mr. Redwine is in the light-colored, I believe, light-colored baseball cap, blue jacket, Dylan's in the shorts T-shirt, and the ball cap that appears to be on backwards, carrying a backpack.
What color hat does Dylan appear to have on?
It appears to be white, with some sort of lettering on it in dark colors.
And what color shirt does Dylan have on?
Black.
He's wearing shorts, you said?
Correct. Also appear to be black shorts.
We'll stop it here. What direction are they heading at this point, Mr. Broccus?
They are headed straight in the direction of the main exit doors going out the center of the terminal building.
You could have a seat again, sir. Thank you. We're done with the screen. You're on.
Okay.
Mr. Broccus, were you able to locate any other video before or after the clip that's played here?
I was not.
And what is the reason we would not have them on video after that point?
Well, I can only assume from the positioning of my cameras and the fact there were no videos there, the only way you could get out of the building without showing up on other cameras would be by exiting the center doors.
So if they left straight from the airport at that point, it would not have shown on other cameras?
Correct.
Your Honor, I have nothing further from Mr. Broccus. Thank you, sir.
All right. Mr. Moran?
Thank you, Your Honor. And if I could request that exhibit just be put on the first frame. Mr. Broccus, I'm in trouble today for failure to project and enunciate, so let me know. If you can't hear me, you'll be helping other folks out too. And I sort of like Mr. Broadcast, Mr. Broccus. With respect to the video that we're watching, are you the one who isolated this footage?
Yes.
Okay. So this wasn't an employee of yours, you specifically at the request of law enforcement went to find footage of Mr. Redwine and his child?
So initially, an employee and I were working together, working at screens connected to the server. The bits and bytes, if you will, were stored on a server at that point in time. So we were reviewing video together, going through all the cameras over a longer period of time. We weren't sure right then exactly when they would have come into the building. So we were reviewing quite a pretty good volume of footage and working together. And I don't recall which one of us actually saw this one first. It could have been either one of us. But then we began to work together as soon as it was identified. And I was the one that made the initial CD copy.
I see.
Yeah.
I got the impression that you were the boss based on your...
I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your Honor, may I approach? I'd like to point
Yes.
something out on this. This,
Mr. Moran, you really have to go off to the side so that all viewers can see.
sir, this sign here with the red circle, white stripe through the center of it indicates where ticketed passengers only can go, correct?
Actually, no one could pass that particular sign because that was the exit doors. Ticketed passengers had to enter through TSA security screening lines to the right of that sign.
If you did not have an airplane ticket, you could stand like where this lady is standing, correct?
That was pushing it, but yes.
Okay. And fair to say that
Mr. Moran again. Against the wall, please.
these two are in stride when the video starts, correct? Mr. Redwine and Dylan Redwine.
Well, I can't see if they're in stride, but yeah, they're side by side.
Okay. So the video showing Dylan exiting these doors was not captured.
It was not, and I'm not really sure. It was partly because it was out of at the outer limit of the focal range of the camera, but the video did not trigger immediately when he hit the door.
Okay. Mr. Broccus, with your time spent at the airport, is it your understanding that it's not uncommon for people picking up passengers at the Durango airport to pick them up at the curb?
Certainly happens far too often.
Yeah, probably frustrating. It's a security thing, huh?
It is correct.
But commonly folks wait for their guests or arriving passengers at the curb at the airport, correct?
Frequently.
And in this instance, obviously, Mr. Redwine's in the airport and greeting his child, right?
Yes.
And we do not have the beginning of this sequence where the two of them, or where at least Dylan is exiting the door and first encounters his dad. He's beyond his father in this image, right?
Correct.
Thank you, sir.
Any redirect?
Mr. Broccus, what do those people seem to be doing standing right there? On the left side of the screen.
There's like a grouping of 4 people there, is that what you're asking about?
Yes, sir.
They're waiting, yeah. I assume, anyway, they are waiting for other passengers.
That's what happens in that part of the air.
Correct. Actually, you can see a white tape there in front of them, and that's normally where we try to stop people that are waiting from going beyond there, or did in those days.
I appreciate that all these years later it still bothers you that people are past that.
I have some stories.
Well, not today. You done?
Your Honor, yes, we have nothing further from Mr. Broccus. Thank you, sir.
Anything for the jury? Okay, pass it down, please. No, I think I should probably wait. Thank you. All right, Mr. Broccus, I'll get your name right. Do you remember what the weather was that day at the airport and or the temperature?
I do not
All right,
at all.
you. Anything else for me to say?
No, Your Honor, thank you. And the people would ask that Mr. Broccus be excused from the subpoena.
Any objection?
No, thank you.
Okay, you're free to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your next witness?
Your Honor, the people call Therese Burton to the stand.
You right up here, Ms. Burton? And if you'd raise your right hand before you sit down, please. Raise your hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Have a seat.
Hi. How are you today, ma'am?
I'm good.
Please state your full name, spelling your last name for the record.
Therese Marie Burton, B-U-R-T-O-N.
Ms. Burton, how are you employed?
I am employed at Walmart,
How long have you worked for Walmart?
22 years.
Long career at Walmart. What location are you at currently?
Currently, I'm at the West Side in Farmington, New Mexico.
Can you walk us through your career with Walmart just briefly, please?
Can.
Before you start, it looks like you just pulled out a piece of paper.
I did.
No-
It just says my years at Walmart and what I've done. I've done a lot.
I appreciate your preparation for today. Can you just, from the best of your recollection,
Okay.
tell us about your career at Walmart, and then if you need to look at something, we need to know what it is you're looking
Okay, so I started off in TLE. I was department manager for a year,
for.
Tire, Lube, and Express. And then I went to pharmacy for about 4 years. And I was a department manager and then also a tech in the pharmacy. I was ICS lead for a year. I went to stationery as department manager, went to the UPC department, which is takes care of all the items that comes into the store for 3 years. And then I became a asset protection manager, and I did that for 3 years. And then I went to become, I was an optician for 6 years, and then I transferred. And I do just about anything at this store that you need me to.
What store did you work at prior to going to the Farmington location?
Durango, store 2270.
And were you an asset protection manager when you were at the store in Durango?
I was.
What did that involve on a daily basis?
It involved making sure all the cameras were working, were clear, could maintain, you know, that everything was recording. Basically just checking to make sure that, you know, the store was being protected. So.
You contacted by law enforcement after November 18th, 2012, in connection with the disappearance of a young man named Dylan Redwine?
I was.
What did they request of you?
They requested to come in and see the cameras and to get a receipt, because that was the last that they knew that he was there.
That who was there?
Dylan and his dad.
You say Dylan and his dad, you're referring to Dylan Redwine and Broccus.
Yes.
And what did you do upon receiving that request from law enforcement?
Just took him back to the office. We pulled the receipt first, because that tells me what register they went to. And then normally you go backwards. So you have a time, like a timestamp at 2 o'clock. So at that register, say 13, then you start going backwards and following them. It's just easier.
When you say following them, what does that involve? Can you explain that to the jury?
It's a matter of, so you know your cameras, and you know you go down grocery main action way to, like, you went to the meat department, and then you know they all have different names, and we can pretty much follow you throughout the whole store. The only place we can't follow you is in the bathroom. We know you went in there, and we know when you came out, but that's it.
No cameras in the bathroom. Correct. What time and date were you looking for based on your review of the receipt?
You know, it's been so long. I couldn't tell you. I'd have to look at the receipt, but I mean, looking at this, it's telling me that was the.
Stop for 1 second.
No.
That's different.
Okay. It's been too long.
I understand it's been a long time. You may. Gordon, I'm going to ask you to take a look at what's been previously marked as people's 40 for identification. Do you recognize that, ma'am?
I do.
What do you recognize that to be? That's
the receipt that we pulled off of the register. And do you want to know what register it was, or?
Yes, please.
So it was register 14, and the time was 7:05.
On what date?
On the 18th of November.
2012.
Yes.
And was that receipt made at or near the time that the purchase actually happened?
Ms.
Well,
Burton, you got to speak up. Sometimes you're tailing off there. So
oh, I'm sorry. So this receipt is a copy that I did, I'm pretty sure. And it would have been done the next day. So, you know, we just go in and go into the spooler, find what we're looking for, and then we're able to print it.
And purchases are recorded at Walmart as part of their regular business activity?
Right.
And the regular practice of Walmart is to make receipts such as that one?
Correct.
And the receipt was retained and kept in the course of regular business activity?
Right.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to admit people's 40 into evidence.
Mr. Bogan?
No objection.
Submitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. So the time on the receipt was?
7:05 in the evening.
That means what time they're paying and checking out?
Right. That's when it's ended, basically.
So when you have that information from the receipt, what do you do next?
So I started from the register, and I started just following them back. So they did split up, and at that point I had to take one of them, you know, follow, write it all down as to where everybody went, what was picked. And so I followed Dylan, and I also followed his dad throughout the whole store, when they met up, when they didn't meet up, you know, what they were doing.
And did you put together a disc capturing all those things?
I did.
And how'd you go about doing that?
So, since everybody's tech savvy now, everything is there, and you tell it, I want from 7:05, you know, a little bit before 7:05, putting everything on, and then you just start going backwards. And, you know, so until I get to that clip that he's out of that camera shot, which could have been 6:59, I take that, and then I go to the next camera, and I take that, drop it to the disk that I'm going to copy, and I go to the next camera. I start from that time until he's out of the range, and I tell the computer to take that and drop it over to be copied to the disk too, you know, all the way through until they walk back, they walk in. So in other words, I got them walking out and walking in.
And do you ultimately put together the video compilation from start to finish?
I did, yeah.
And do you also have a version where you use the spotlighting function?
Yes.
What is that?
So sometimes it's hard to really see, or there's too many people in the area. So if you highlight it, it shows you who we're looking at. So a lot of times if someone's shoplifting, you know, we want them to see what they had in their hand or where they were putting it on their body. So that way we can show what happened.
Pointed to the court in
Yeah.
reference to perhaps a shoplifting.
Right,
Seems like you've had some experience with this.
a little bit.
And did you, in regards to this case, put together two discs, one version that's a full compilation and the other version that's a compilation including the spotlight?
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to take a look at the mark with people 38 and 39 for identification. Do you recognize those, Ms. Burton?
I do.
What do you recognize those to be?
They're the discs that I made.
How do you know that people 38 and people 39 are the same disc that you made?
Because it's got my signature on it, and I did come in and review it before this to make sure it was the same one.
So is there, I'm sorry, your initials or signature on each
Right.
disc, as well as the date that you reviewed it last?
Right.
And are each of those discs a fair, accurate, and in fact exact recording of the clips that you were able to identify and put together from November 18th, 2012?
They are.
Your Honor, at this time, I seek to admit 38 and 39 into evidence, please.
Any objection?
One question on voir dire, if I may.
Go ahead.
The discs, both the spotlight and the non-spotlight, contain a compilation of all the clips you collected of both Dylan Redwine and Mr. Redwine, his father?
Yeah.
No objection.
Okay, they'll both be admitted, and just for clarity for me, which one's got the spotlight on it, 38 or 39?
It's Exhibit 39, Your Honor.
39.
Thank you.
At this point, with the court's permission, I'd like to play Exhibit 39. And as we go through that, Ms. Burton, I'm going to ask you questions at different points to help the jury understand where these two individuals, Dylan Redwine and Mark Redwine, are located within the store.
Okay.
We're going to...
Is there an issue?
No issue.
Okay.
Mr. Champagne was suggesting that I talk with Your Honor about the timing for the finish of the day, and I think that might be a good idea. We could,
It's 3 o'clock. We have a hard stop at 3.
and we will definitely stop by then, of course, Your Honor. The video itself that we're putting into evidence is approximately 34 minutes. And then I would have some follow-up questions from Ms. Burton, but it appears she'd have to come back tomorrow.
Yes.
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mhm.
So before we start the video, you mentioned, ma'am, there were times where Dylan and Mark Redwine were not together
Yes.
in Walmart. How soon after they entered Walmart did you find them to separate?
As soon as they came in.
As soon as they entered the store?
Yeah, they got in through the vestibule, which where the doors are, and you come through, that's called the vestibule. And then you get into the actual tile part, and that's the beginning of Walmart, you know, and that's where they split up. So
we have here on the screen frozen picture. What's the date and time that we have here?
It's November the 18th at 6:18, 54 p.m.
What is the jury looking at in this still?
see walking into Walmart, it's the vestibule.
I'm going to play this for the first 21 seconds. Let me stop it there. Were you able to identify Dylan Redwine entering the store?
Yes, that's Dylan right there.
Okay, that's Dylan Redwine. Where in particular is he in this picture?
He has the hat on, the black and white hat with the black shirt.
Okay, so he has the white hat, and then you said black and white hat and black shirt?
Yes.
And we could just back up a few seconds, please. Were you able to identify Mark Redwine entering the store?
Yes, he's going in to get the carts. He's got the white hat on and the jacket.
Where is he on that picture, ma'am?
He is heading into the cart bay. He's behind the lady in the green.
We're going to move ahead somewhat until 37 seconds more. Ms. Burton, where do we see Dylan Redwine at this point?
He is in the grocery action alley, which is heading back towards the milk department. In other words, there's clothing on this side, food on this side, and the milk department straight back.
Can I approach, Your Honor, and give Ms. Burton the pointer?
Yes.
My finger's not working.
The court's permission, I'm going to ask you to step down if you could.
Ms. Burton, would you also pick up the, after you get down? There's a microphone on the stand next to you. It's a wireless mic. If you could hold that in your other hand so that, it's to the right, to your right, to your right.
Oh, this guy right here.
Yeah, just pull it out and talk into it. We're streaming this so people can hear.
Okay. So this is Dylan right here, and he is heading towards the dairy department. This is your soft line area. This is grocery. So he's heading straight back towards the back.
And where is Mark Redwine at this point?
He is heading out of the store.
And can you please point to that on the screen, please? Yes. And the circle of light there, is that the spotlight that you referred to earlier?
Yes.
We're going to go ahead until the minute 13 mark. Ms. Burton, is the screen on the right the one you're looking at to try to identify and spotlight Dylan Redwine?
Are we talking this one here?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
And where did we see, if at all, Dylan Redwine on that screen?
He's in this area looking at DVDs.
About, sorry,
Go ahead. About right there.
how about Mark Redwine?
He is just walking back into the store.
Where do you see that?
He is walking through the vestibule again, and then towards into the store.
Okay, we're going to go ahead to the 134 mark. And what did we see with regards to Dylan Redwine on the right-hand side of the screen?
He went into the men's restroom.
And who did he go in with?
no one inside.
And where is Mark Redwine at this point in the store?
He is walking down the, looks like it's the chemical side of the, he's still in Brush, shopping.
Move ahead.
He's in the frozen area.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move ahead to the 244 mark. We'll let this keep rolling, but Ms. Burton, did we see Dylan Redwine leave the restroom?
We did.
And again, what did you see him wearing in that piece there?
He still had on the same hat and shirt, the black and white hat with the black shirt.
What are we seeing here, Ms. Burton?
He's back in electronics, walking towards the game area.
What is Dylan Redwine looking at this point at the 2-minute and 45-second mark?
That's usually controllers and stuff in that area to play the video games with.
Where is Mark Redwine at this point?
He's in the vegetable department. Produce area.
Produce area, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move ahead to the 441. We're going to keep this playing here, Ms. Burton, but I may ask you a couple questions as we go, okay?
Okay.
You see now a spot of light on the left-hand side of the screen, and it just faded. What was that spotlight focused on?
I'm sorry, I was watching Dylan. Can you go back?
Sure, I'm sorry.
It was a spotlight on Mr. Redwine getting potatoes or something.
What do we see Dylan Redwine doing here at the 346 mark, Ms. Burton?
Well, he was yawning and just kind of hanging out. He's walking towards Action Alley, going back towards the front of the store, orientated to right now.
Where is Dylan at this point?
He's still in electronics. He's over by the video game cages.
Where's his father in the store at this point?
He's still in produce.
Here we are at 441 of the clip. What do we see Dylan Redwine doing, Ms. Burton?
He's checking out some of the games that are out and not locked up in electronic.
Where is his father, Mr. Redwine?
He's still in produce, getting fresh vegetables.
I think the jury might be oriented to what we're going to be doing here, so if you want to have a seat, sit back while we do the rest of this. I think that makes sense.
And if you still talk into the handheld microphone, if you turn away, they won't be able to hear you. So
Oh, okay.
Burton, one screen has gone black. What does that signify at that point?
That he's out of view of the camera right now.
He being Dylan Redwine.
Right. A lot of times we don't have cameras in soft lines, which is the clothing area. So that would be why you wouldn't see him if you went in there to look at stuff. That's what, yeah. If he walked into soft lines, which is the clothing area, we don't have cameras in there.
You just see Mark Redwine exit that camera view on the left-hand side of the screen.
Right.
What are we looking at on the left-hand side of the screen here at the 7-minute mark?
That's the meat department. He's looking at meat.
He being Mark Redwine.
Redwine.
You'll see Mr. Redwine on camera here in the meat department, on the left-hand side of the screen.
Yes.
Any sign of Dylan Redwine in the vicinity?
Do not see Dylan.
What do we see here, Ms. Burton?
He's heading towards the deli department where we have, back towards the back of the store.
And he, just for the record, being
Is Mark Redwine.
about now.
He is still in the meat/deli area.
Do we know where Dylan Redwine is at this point?
No,
But not in that area.
he is not in the area with his dad.
Burton, I'm going to stop it here for a second. We see the spotlight on the screen there on the left. What was the reason you put the spotlight on there?
Just showing that he had left the bunkers of meat and headed down the aisle, and it could be the beer aisle, I'm not sure until the next shot comes up.
Could be the what aisle?
The beer aisle, alcohol aisle, that's right in through there. So until the next screen comes up where we catch him, that'll tell me the next aisle he went down.
Okay. And where do we see Dylan Redwine, if at all?
We don't see him.
What does Mr. Redwine appear to be looking at this point, 12:11 into the clip?
That looks like that's Coke on that aisle. Across from it is the bunker of, are you asking Dylan or his dad? I'm sorry.
Okay, Mark Redwine, Mr. Redwine.
Okay. It looks like he was picking up Coke or something. On that side is the Coke and water area.
And then what do we now have on the right-hand side of the screen?
We have Dylan back in electronics looking at phones and GPSs.
Still wearing that same hat?
He is.
And I'm going to stop it at 12:58. You see a spotlight on the right-hand side of the screen. Can you tell the jury what we're looking at here, please?
That's the kiosk that Dylan's at.
Fair to say a different view of the same area that we just saw the overhead shot from?
Right.
What is Dylan doing at this point, Ms. Burton?
He's heading towards the other kiosk that we have associates behind to help them decide what they want to buy. That could be another phone center or could be the GPS.
Who is he with at this point?
He's by himself.
On the left-hand side of the screen, what do we see now?
We see Mark walking over to the dairy area.
What do we have Dylan doing here, Ms. Burton?
He's looking at the DVDs to buy. Action Alley in front of electronics.
What do we have on the left-hand side of the screen at this point, which is 14:45?
Mark is walking around the dairy bunker area looking.
Say Mark, you're referring to Mark Redwine?
Mark Redwine, yes.
Is that him there in the white hat circling?
Yes, it is.
do we see Dylan Redwine doing?
Dylan is heading, towards the auto area, leaving electronics. And now he's coming back into electronics.
See the spotlight again on the right-hand side of the screen. What does that signify?
Dylan is in electronics. He's back by that kiosk he was at earlier.
(1604), Ms. Burton?
Dylan is still in electronics at the kiosk, looking at, it looks like pads and stuff now.
What do we have spotlighted here?
Dylan is leaving electronics, heading towards the grocery area.
For the record, that's the 1616 mark, 6:38:55 p.m., is that right?
Yes, that's right.
See Dylan here at 6:39:12.
Yes, he's looking at movies again.
The spotlight here at 6:40 p.m. What are we looking at, Ms. Burton?
Dylan is heading towards, looks like hardware. And now he's back in electronics.
That's at 6:41 p.m.
Yes.
So 6:42:09, Ms. Burton. What does Dylan appear to be doing here?
He's in electronics, and he is going through the dump bin of movies.
Say dump bin, just to make sure we're all on the same page. What do you mean?
So we get big boxes of movies that come in. We just dump them in that bin, and then everybody just goes through them. That way, that's just a dump bin. It's the cheapest movies we have that everybody gets to buy.
What do we see on the left-hand side of the screen here at 6:42:25?
It looks like Mark is back in grocery. He's by the dairy bunkers. That's the eggs and stuff that we have in the refrigerated case. That's where he was. So he came back this way a little bit.
Here at 6:43:30, we see a spotlight on the right-hand side of the screen and a spotlight on the left-hand side of the screen. What are we looking at, Ms. Burton?
On the right-hand side, you see Dylan still going through the dump bin, and Mark is over in grocery at the cold bunker where the eggs and cheese are, heading back up towards it's called Action Alley Grocery, where basically he is.
Ms. Burton, it's 6:45:09 on the clock there. What do we see on the right and what do we see on the left?
Dylan is still at the dump bin in electronics, looking at movies, and Mark Redwine has gone to the laundry soap area, still shopping.
Entering the store, how much time have they spent together?
None.
Six 6:45:57, Ms. Burton, what do we see at this point?
Dylan is still at the dump bin. It looks like Mark has come back to see where he's at. He's next to Dylan.
what did it appear Dylan just did?
Looks like he picked out some movies and put them in the cart.
The 6:46:28. Mark, Ms. Burton, what do we see happening here?
Looks like they're having a conversation in electronics right in front of the DVD movies.
Your Honor, we have a ways to go. This might be a good stopping point with the 3 o'clock stop sign.
I was about to interrupt you, so 6:48:28, 6:46:28 is where we'll start again tomorrow on this. Ladies and gentlemen, please remember, you're not to discuss this case either amongst yourselves or with anyone else during the course of the trial. Do not initiate, post, or respond to anything about the case on social media. Keep an open mind throughout the trial. Reach your decision only during your final deliberations. Don't let any third parties talk to you about the case. Again, if anybody does over your objection, let me know. Don't talk with anybody involved in the case other than Aaron or myself or Cindy. Particularly not the lawyers, witnesses, or anybody else that's been in the courtroom today. Don't gather any information on your own. Do not engage in any outside reading on the case. Do not attempt to visit any places mentioned in the case. Don't read about the case newspaper. Listen to it on the radio. Watch it on TV. Look at the internet, social media, any other media source about this. Don't try and learn about this case outside the courtroom. We don't necessarily have to start at 8 tomorrow in court, but I'd like to start as soon thereafter. So is 10 to 8 still work for everybody to get here, to meet, to get into the courtroom, or get into the courthouse, excuse me? Okay. So plan on being back at 10 to 8. We probably have some stuff that we'll do right about that time. So hopefully as soon as you guys are ready, we'll be ready. With that, everybody rise for the hearing.
Good thing you do, huh? I see where it says mute.
Okay, jury's almost done. The door is open. There it goes. Okay. Ms. Burton, just be back here at 8 o'clock, ready to testify?
Okay.
Okay. Anything before we leave that we need to deal with?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Defense?
Not from defense.
Okay. We'll see you guys tomorrow, just a little bit before 8. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Have a good night.
You too. So does that yellow light, excuse me, the yellow light mean it's off? Or is it just muted? Does it turn itself off? Okay. All right. Yes, please.
I found this.
So this is sanctions, you want this in your house. Let's move this in. Stuffing? Probably stuff. I mean, do we want to stuff this back down every night? Yeah. 1, 2, 3. On the floor. Right? Right? What? Is that it? I'll send you that email. Right. You just send them all?
I just wanted to know you don't need anything.